on me. I promise that you'll never be lonely.
Hi, welcome all my Connor Aquinas Syndrome warriors, family, friends, loved ones, and anyone in between. All are welcomed here. If you are seeing this page, it's either because someone you know or yourself are suffering from Connor Aquinas Syndrome and you're trying to wrap your mind around it. And it is a very scary time. So all are welcomed here. If you don't already know, my name is Jennifer. I'm 7 years post-op, and I want to welcome you to my story. Where do I start? At 23, I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease. It meant that my spine was pretty much a ticking time bomb. About 8 years ago, I got to my heaviest point. I was dealing with a lot of stuff mentally, not just physically at that time. And I went to the doctor because I was having severe back pains, and when I'd go to the hospital, they would do the same thing, dope me up, give me some painkillers and give me some muscle relaxers, send me home, blah, 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 same thing, right? And I knew something was getting worse, and I went to a spine specialist, and the spine specialist pretty much just told me, ma'am, there's nothing we can do for you. You're too heavy. If we put you on the table, you're gonna die. And it scared me half to death. The reason for that is I lost my dad at 42. He died of heart disease. So I was terrified. So I went home that day and I talked to my boyfriend at the time, and it scared me half to death. So I started exercising, and about 15 minutes every day, nothing too strenuous, watched what I ate, normal diet stuff. But I did real good, and I lost 70 pounds in 7 months. All the doctors say, oh, I'm so proud of you. You shouldn't have no more back problems, like it was a magic wand. What they failed to tell me was it's not a magic wand, and that it was just something to hold them over so they didn't have to do the surgeries. That was plain and simple. So, it was December 6th, 7 years ago. Let me remind you, I'm 70 pounds down at that time. Doctors tried to convince me that it was in my head, or that I wasn't in much pain as I was, but I was on Vicodin and some other painkillers and stuff they had me on. And we were getting ready for a Christmas party. And when that Christmas party came about, I had to go to the restroom because of being on Vicodin for so long. I couldn't go like a normal person. Like, I would 4 or 5 days, which is really bad on your body. But I know I'm not the only person, but I'm the type of person out there, I don't want to use other people's bathrooms. I don't like using public bathrooms. So I knew I was going to go to this Christmas party, so I knew I had to go to the restroom because I didn't want to get there and then have to go. So I went in there and I pushed. And I pushed. And I felt something almost like a rubber band snapping me in my back. It was heat, and automatically pain radiated down my spine, and it was almost like my hips couldn't keep my body up all the way, and it just hurt to even sit up straight, to bend over, to back up, anything like that. It hurt. I told my husband and my kids, he's my husband now, but he was my boyfriend at the time, my husband and my kids to go ahead and go, and that I would call them if I needed anything, but I was going to take a heating pad, put on it, take a Vicodin, and try to figure it out. About 2 hours into it, I was on the bed and I couldn't even get dressed. I still was just out of the shower from before he had left, and it had been 2 hours and I just couldn't get dressed. I couldn't put pressure on my spine. I couldn't put pressure on my legs. And without it just hurting so extremely bad. So I was scared. So I called him and I told him, you need to come home. I think I need to go to the hospital. Something's not right. When he came in, he seen that I was still laying on the bed with just a blanket and a sheet on me, and that I hadn't gotten dressed, and it had been already 2 hours. So he was kind of weirded out and got me in the car and got me up to the hospital. And where I live at, you can't tell what season you're going to get from day to day. We can have 4 seasons in a week, no lie. So it was a snowstorm at this time. It was in December, and they took me up there, and they told me their bedside manner sucked. Let me just say it by that matter. They proceeded to feel like I was faking, and they tried to tell me I needed to sit up, and I could not sit up. The only comfortable position that I was laying in was almost like a fetal position, kinda, and I couldn't move. And then they continued to prod at me and say some rude stuff, actually. And I'm that type of person where I'm not a rude person, actually. I'm very good to get along with. I love everybody. And that's just the type of personality I am. It takes a lot to rile me up, but I was in a lot of pain. So I was getting irritated at this time. And after they doped me up with a bunch of morphine and a bunch of Valium, they sent me home. That's plain and simple. And when they sent me home, it was around 11 o'clock that night. So I was in there from 5 o'clock in the emergency room until about 11 o'clock when they released me. And I went home. But when I went home, I sat in my recliner, but I could tell when I got out of the car that my balance was gone. But I thought it was just the morphine. I'm like, it just must be the morphine, you know, and the Valium they had me on because they doped me up pretty good. So I was like, I just need to go to bed. So I went to bed. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I get up. And something's telling me I hadn't went to the restroom since 2 o'clock from the day before. And I'm like, that's not right. I'm like, I don't even feel like I gotta go. So my first reaction was to what? Put my hand between my legs to see if I had urinated or whatever on me, because I was very unsure of what was going on. And I felt, and I didn't have urinate on me or nothing, so I was like, what is going on? Well, I was like, well, I probably need to get up and go to the bathroom. So when I went to go move my legs, I couldn't move my legs. I was completely paralyzed from the waist down. I had no strength and no feeling. And I freaked out. And I woke up. My boyfriend at the time is now my husband. And I told him, I'm like, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. And he was like, scared. But he was like, well, maybe it's just the morphine and stuff. He hasn't worn off of you and stuff. And I'm like, no, there's something wrong. But I was so drugged up that I passed back out. And when I woke, it was like 45 minutes later. But then when I woke up, I was like in a shock, freak out mode. And I was like, there's something really wrong with me. So he's like, can you get up? And I went to the edge of the bed and I couldn't get up. And I thought, well, maybe this is just a nightmare because I'm sitting on the edge of the bed and I'm trying to get a grip of myself. And I'm like, this ain't reality. This can't be reality. This can't be happening. And I went to go stand up and I fell. Like somebody that didn't have no legs because I didn't. And I was like, oh, no, something's not right. And my boyfriend at the time was like, no, something's not right. And I had 2 kids. I didn't want them to really see any of this. So I got my family members to come, and my other one went to one of her friends' house and called the ambulance, and I didn't want them to have to come get me in my room. So I got on the ground and I army crawled all the way out to my recliner so my kids wouldn't see me. And when they left and stuff, and that they came, the ambulance people came and they put me on a stretcher, and they were like, "What's going on?" And I explained it to them, and they were just kind of like looking at me and like, "Ah." But I was like, my feelings were so confused, and I felt like I was in a dream. Like, it was not reality to me. When it happened, I was like, this is just, wake up. Wake up, Jennifer, what are you doing? And I just couldn't. And I got there, and they realized that I had blown a disc, and it had ruptured yesterday, and that all my nerves were just smashed for a long period of time. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So they said they were going to have to take me to a bigger hospital so they can do emergency spine surgery on me. I had never been so scared in my life. And my boyfriend couldn't go in the ambulance with me because it was a blizzard outside. What would normally take an ambulance to get 45 minutes to the major hospital, to the hospital that I was already at, to take me to the major hospital, it only took 45 minutes. It took 3.5 hours. And they had me doped up so much that I was asleep pretty much the whole ride. I would hear them every once in a while. And then when I got to the emergency room of the bigger hospital where they were going to do the surgery at me, of course, I had more doctors coming in and poking and prodding at me and asking me the same questions. And at this time, you're in so much shock, and you're so scared, and you're so freaked out, and you don't know what to do, and you don't know what you're expecting, and nobody's explaining nothing to you. I was so terrified. And anyway, when the surgery room came open, they wheeled me back there, and they gave me a plastic bag, and they said if something were to happen to go wrong, we need to know who is responsible of everything, and so forth, so on. So I left a note to my boyfriend and gave him my ring and told him that I leave him both kids if something happens to me, and that I love them all. And it was just like happening so quick once we got there. And as kind of weird as this sounds, you know, I was so terrified when they were going to put me under. And I remember saying something along the lines of, Dad, watch over me. And then I went to sleep. Excuse me. But then I woke up. When I woke up, I can remember my first word were my boyfriend's name and my kid's name, where they were, where are they? And he had finally got there. It took him 2 hours to get there. And he had got there, and he was waiting for me to completely wake up, and I wasn't aware of what was really going on. All I knew is I went into surgery, and I was drowsy, and I was scared, because I know why I went into surgery. I do remember that. So I went, and my first reaction was to grab my legs. And grab them and squeeze them to see if I could feel anything. And I could feel a little bit on the front, and I was so excited. And then the doctors come in, and they sat down with me. This was about an hour or two after I woke up from surgery, and I was getting myself back together, and my boyfriend at the time didn't know exactly what was going on all the way himself. They just said that they told him that they put me into surgery. It took 6 hours. And we would find out what kind of nerve damage was done after the whole situation. So he wasn't really aware of everything that was going on either. So anyway, the doctors come in there, and we're in a university hospital. So they normally have some nurses or doctors that are going to become doctors come in, and they ask you permission first. And I told them, yeah, if it's something that they can learn from, then let them come on in and I'll figure it out. I've never been a weak person. I've been through my share of crap along with everybody else out there in the world, I know. But if you talk to anybody, they'll tell you I'm a pretty strong human being, and I'm pretty loving and caring and respectful, and I'd give the shirt off my own back if I could. And I'm always positive. I try to be anyway. There's enough negativity in this world. We don't need none more of that, in my opinion. But anyway, so they all come in, and the doctor sit down to me, and they say, excuse me. They say, Miss, my last name at the time, and I said yes, and they said, well, we got some things we need to talk to you about. The surgery went okay. I said, good. But he said, you have what we call Cohen-Aquinas syndrome. I was looking at him like, huh? And he was like, he explained the basics to me, which I've explained in other parts of my videos, so you're more than welcome to go check them out. But they told me the basics of what Cohen-Aquinas syndrome was. And my biggest concern was, will I be able to walk again? And will I be able to play with my kids? My son was like 6, 7. And my daughter was like 8, 9. So, being a mom, if anybody knows being a parent, period, you don't have time to call time out and, get that time away to do what you got to do. There is no timeouts in mother, fatherhood, parenthood, period. Even after your kids are 18, take it from me, there still ain't no timeouts. So, but anyway, so I was more concerned about that. Will I be able to run around with my kids and keep up with my children? Will I be able to do the things they need me to do as far as going to sporting games and keeping up with them as they get older and wanting to play in the parks and wanting to go hiking and wanting to go fishing and wanting to go camping? Am I going to be able to do all that? And you know what? I wish doctors would have just a little bit better bedside manner, in my opinion, just a little bit. Because when you tell somebody this and you give them a booklet and tell them they have to read it to figure out what's really going on, but they just give you the basics, it really sucks. So it came down to the doctor looking me square in my eyes and saying, Jennifer, you may never walk again without a walker, and you may have to use a wheelchair. One thing I forgot to mention is my son's birthday was coming up in a few days. So not only was I worried about being a mom, but I'm worried about my son missing his birthday. So this was not an option for me in my brain. And let me remind you, I'm a very stubborn person. So I looked straight at the doctor, and I looked at him and I said, well, doctor, this is not an option. My condition is not an option. I have to walk. I have to stand. I have children, and I have no other choice. He looked at me, he goes, we can give it our best and we can try. Then they come to me 2 hours later and talk about putting me in a nursing facility where somebody can help me if I need help 24 hours for physical therapy, walking, basic things. And I looked at the doctor and I told him, I will be leaving. And I called my boyfriend and I told him, being in the hospital only 3 days, I told him to come get me. My husband came and got me. He's my husband now. Came and got me. And I will never forget the look on those doctors' face when I walked out of there with a walker and told them, I bet I come back here and I'm using a cane or less. It took a long time, and I'm going to tell you, if anything, more than anything, not only did it take a beating on me physically, but emotionally I think I was more messed up emotionally than I was ever physically, and that's the truth. My pride was a big hit, and after I got home, I would sit in the shower for hours and cry. And why did I cry in the shower? It was because the shower drowned out my sobs in the water. And I asked many times why. It's not fair. I lost the 70 pounds like the damn doctor told me to. I was eating better like they told me to. Like it was like a magic wand and it was just going to fix everything. And it didn't. It didn't fix nothing. And now I'm back to being just almost as heavy as I was before my back went out the first time, and I still got 2 bulging discs. But that's my story. I went to go to the restroom, and plain and simple, because I was on a bunch of Vicodins, I was very stuffed up, pushed too hard, and blew my disc. So, if you think that your story might be embarrassing, always remember that you know how many times I've had to tell this story? And if you're giggling right now, it's okay. I'm glad you're giggling. I'm glad that you find it funny. Because after so many years, I kind of find it funny. I'm like, that is just my luck. Because if I didn't have any luck, if I didn't have any bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all, I swear. Oh my goodness. But, I mean, now I look back at it and, you know, I still look back on it and I always ask myself why to this day. I mean, you're never going to get over that why. You just got to remember that we find new ways to do things. You can't break what's already been broken, if you think about it. I was told that when I was younger, and I've kept that close. You can't break what's already been broken. And we can only go from here. I mean, normal people would have broke by now, right? But look, we're still going. And some days are harder than others, and some days we want to give up, and some days it just sucks, and some days we have more accidents than others, and some days the pain's more intense, and sometimes the depression's more intense, and sometimes it's just other people interacting with you is more intense. And you just gotta take a breath. Even if it's just taking 10 minutes out by yourself and take a bath and soak, or if a bath ain't your thing and a walk is your thing, then take a walk for 10 minutes. Even if you have to stop 20 times and sit down, do it. Live your life, because this is your life, and we only get one life. And it might not be the best life, and it might not be the life that we all planned for, but god darn it, it's a life. We wake up every day and we get to be around the ones that we love, even if it's mom or dad or cousins, aunts, uncles, friends, family, anybody. Just know that there is somebody out there for you, and that you're not alone on this, and that your story is your story. It's the chapters of your book. So make them worthwhile. Why not? So I hope this gave you a little bit of insight of who exactly I am. And I hope that you enjoyed this story, I guess. And I hope it gives you the courage that you need to maybe say your story, or to fight another battle that you might have to fight. And just know, always, you're not alone, and you are warriors. And I love you guys. Until next time, subscribe, comment in the stuff below. I'll always comment back. Share the video if you know somebody that might need it or like it. And I love you all. Till next time.
Wonder if God got a plan for everyone. I wonder if I could take a second run. 'Cause I carry on getting sad and getting stuck. What I wouldn't give for a life that doesn't suck. I'm a moving target. I never finish what I've started. I'm a moving target. But if I stop moving, then I'll have to face myself. I don't wanna face myself. I don't wanna face myself.